you've stunted your growth. You've got all this LSD, long slow distance in your legs, and I'm just waiting for my knees to blow up. Because this is what I've heard constantly.
And welcome to Healthy Living. My name is Don Pelto, and I have Golden Harper here. He is was with Ultra, and kind of is still with Ultra, kind of the inventor of that shoe brand. And we're going to talk a little bit about his experience, kind of from a 10-year-old age, 10 to 14-year-old. He was a big runner, cross country. Welcome, Golden, back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me back. Stoked to be here.
And so let's get a little bit. You told me last time we were together that your family, you grew up in a shoe store and you were kind of running early on, and then were you just naturally good? Did you have coaching? Kind of tell me your story from early on.
Yeah, I don't know if there is an actual answer to that, but I would say I think our calling card is that, our goal was always to run smarter than everybody else. And runners are just not good at this. If you look at the average runner there, they don't do film study like every other athlete does. You know what I'm talking about?
Hmm. Hmm.
You see the quarterbacks break out their iPads and they're, studying film, and runners just don't do that. Most of them just go run. They might read a little bit in runner's world if you're lucky. Most of that is pretty first level knowledge. Not to be disparaging at all, but it's constrained by advertisers and stuff like that. So it's really hard to get to the meat of things. And runners just don't. They're generally not very good students of their craft. And that was something that was very different for me growing up. That I think was different than just about every other runner out there. Um, I come from a family where when I was born, my parents were new to running. In fact, even to this day, like we show up to family reunions and people are like, huh, who are the skinny people? You know, like we're outliers. We're the only real athletes in the families in on both sides for the most part. And don't get me wrong, our extended family are just wonderful humans. But we are definitely outliers in the way we live our lives and how athletic we are and act. And so it was new to my family. And my dad was actually drafted to play baseball. He was supposed to play for the Angels before blowing his knee out playing football.
Hmm.
He was 240 pounds and 5'9". So pretty big guy.
Yeah.
And this is not long before I was born. Honestly, I can't remember if we covered this last time. I don't think we did. Um, but he ends up blowing his knee out playing football, and he then is told by the doctors, you're never going to run again. It's an unhappy triad. You'll know what that is.
Hmm.
And he's got no meniscus at all. He's bone on bone. The doctor's like, you're never going to run again. So there's a career change right there. You're no longer playing pro baseball, and you're never going to walk normal again. And that's totally been true to this day. My dad's 74 years old now, and he still doesn't walk normal. Here we are, 45, 50 years later or whatever.
Hmm.
So what happens though is he gets dared to run the Las Vegas Marathon by his buddy's dad. And dares him and his buddy because they've basically been good at anything they've ever done.
Yeah, naturally talented.
Yeah, from a just put a ton of work in,
Hmm.
get results kind of thing. And this dad of my buddy like sends him a postcard in the mail. It's like, if you guys are real men, you'll do this. And they're just like, oh, we're real men. We'll go run the Las Vegas Marathon, and it's like a complete disaster.
Uh,
It's just like excruciatingly painful. My dad claims he crawled across the finish line.
wow.
I mean, it's just ugly, right? And you have to understand the psyche of people like this, right? So what does he do? He like signs up for another one immediately because it pissed him off because for the first time in his life he sucks at something. Not only was he not good, he was like the worst. There's
Uh,
basically nobody behind him. People didn't do 5 6 hour marathons back in those days. We're talking late 70s here. 4 hours was kind of the basement back then.
mhm.
So. Um, so anyway, what happens is he just fails miserably over and over and over till one day he has this revelation. He he's seen some Kenyans running, and he's like, oh my gosh, those guys float. We all crash down the road, but those guys float.
Yep.
I'll bet if I could teach myself to run like them, then then maybe my knee wouldn't hurt so bad. Because what they're doing doesn't look painful like the rest of us what we're doing, and it's very true. You look at elite African runners run, and it, it's not the same thing as the way we run. It doesn't look the same.
There's
It's
no
basically not the same sport, you know.
correct. Yeah, the form.
So
Yep.
yeah, it's a technique thing. We'll come back to that in a little bit. So my dad gets super stoked about remodeling his running technique, teaching himself to run like a Kenyan. And fast forward 7 years later, he's 110 pounds lighter. He wins the St. George Marathon in 2 hours and 22 minutes, still with no meniscus in his knee at all. Completely bone on bone. And then I'm 2 years old at the time. So what do you think I'm being taught?
How to run.
Yeah, how to run
Wow.
like a
Yeah.
Kenny, and of course, my mom has just done her first marathon, and she's in the process of qualifying for her first of 5 Olympic trials, and so her stoke level is high too. So this is like
That's when you were
all
born.
coming together at the
Oh
same time,
wow.
right when I'm born. My dad's working for Nike at the time, and or when I was born, and then by the time he wins the marathon, he's working for Saucony. This is it, and I'm running races as a 2 year old, because my parents put races on, they're race directors, so it's free, it's like, well, throw them in there, and I'm being taught how to run like a Kenyan from a young age.
Wow.
And so, come around to age 8, I win the World Youth Championships. Sean Bradley, the NBA basketball player, like, who's 7'6", like, has to get down on his knees to put the medal on me. And it's like, what's next, And and that really was the thing. And in my family, the St. George Marathon was like the biggest deal of the year. It was even bigger than Boston or anything else. It was really kind of the focus. And uh, I, I went that year, and I asked to run. I'm like, I want to run the marathon. Like, that's what's next for me. It's
Yeah.
what you guys do every year. My next door neighbors ran the marathon as well, and she was an Olympic trials qualifier. So it was just this logical progression for me of like, okay, you know how kids are. They
What's
watch what their
next?
parents
Yep.
do. They want to mimic it. And my parents are like, you're 8. It's like, no, you're not running the marathon. Well, this like terrible, horrible, also wonderful thing happened that year is the youngest runner in the race is 12 years old, runs a pretty decent marathon, and he gets the performance of the day trophy that the race gives out. It was like this, it was sponsored by Dole's, like the fresh fruit performance of the day trophy. It's 6 feet tall. Um,
Taller than him. That's great.
oh yeah, taller than him for sure, and twice as tall as me at the time. And I'm just like, if you would have let me run, I would have got that huge trophy. Because it went to the
At
youngest
12.
runner in the
Yeah.
race, and and I promise you, as a young runner, there is nothing cooler than a trophy that's almost twice as tall as you are. I mean, that is like the ultimate. There is nothing better. And so, my parents were still like, no, 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 you're 8. And so fast forward a year, and I'm still badgering them, and uh, I just like won't let it go. And finally, my dad's like, fine, fine, like leave me alone. Like, if you run rim to rim in the Grand Canyon, harder than a marathon, um, and you run to the top of Mount Timpanogos and back, also harder than a marathon, and do these other, crazy adventure runs, is what my dad called them. I'll let you run the marathon. And I think he thought like, okay, he'll go try this stuff. He's 9 years old at this point. He's gonna hate it. These are very difficult things to do, and then he'll realize that running the marathon is stupid. I kind of liked it. Um, I was a weird kid.
It's the opposite.
Yeah, it just a total backfired, right? So I run rim to rim in the Grand Canyon, and I run to the top of Mount Timpanogos and back, and I do these other qualifying activities, if you will. And it's not like I was really like super training for the marathon, but in process of doing what I had to do to be allowed to run, and
Mm-hmm.
for me it was all fun and games. I'm like chasing deer around the foothills, for crying out loud. Um, and so my dad's forced to let me run. I turned 10 right before the race, so I run my first marathon as a 10-year-old, and obviously, my parents aren't pushing me by any means, but my dad will give me, guidance on how to smartly do this.
Yeah.
And he's like, you just got to be smarter than everybody else out there. People that run marathons are dumb. They don't really study their sport. They go out too fast. They take caffeine before the race, which starts their fat burning, which makes them hit the wall early. I mean, you name it. Here's the nutrition plan. This is what needs to be done. I mean, he lays it out. The guy's a genius. He's like, at the time, probably one of less than 100 subscribers to Owen Anderson's Running Research News, where every study on the history of running is like published and sent out to these people. So my dad's like a research geek, and so I'm the guinea pig in some respects. And I run this first marathon, and I run 3 hours and 8 minutes, 5 seconds as a 10-year-old, which is 7 minutes a mile, state record, and it, I wouldn't say I wasn't trying, but it's not like there was this massive commitment to training here.
Yeah.
It just came naturally. It was in process, right? Um, and looking back on it, I have running logs from the time. I'm like, wow, I was doing some serious work there, but to me, it was just fun.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, in my head, I was going on long runs with the group and I was chasing deer around the foothills. It's not like I was doing like all these crazy hard workouts or my dad's there with a whip or anything. It was like,
Yeah. It was
no, my
fun. It was
parents,
part of.
my parents are like, trying to hold me back, and I'm just doing what I want to do. So, and of course that giant trophy, they gave it to the oldest runner that year, and you think that'll light a fire? Absolutely. So I turned to my parents and I'm like, I need that trophy. you know,
Before I grow, I need it before I grow too.
Yeah, exactly. In a voice about 2 octaves higher, right? And and it's like I'm coming back next year for the trophy, and they're like, okay, whatever. But let's still focus on 5Ks if we can, for most of the year, and take some time off. And I come back the next year. I run 2:57, national best. Fastest any 11-year-old has ever run a marathon in America, still, I believe. And they give the trophy to a disabled athlete. So I'm like, okay, all right, fair enough. And So I come back the next year. This time I get pretty serious. I actually went back and looked at my running log. I did log an 83-mile week as an 11-year-old,
Wow.
which is insane to me right now. I can't remember the last time I logged an 83-mile week. I try to train more efficiently now though. But I come back. I run 2 hours 45 minutes. And
As a 13-year-old, 12 year
as a
old.
12-year-old, yeah, which is the fastest anyone in the world has ever run a marathon at that age, and I believe that still stands as well. And I didn't get the trophy. Um, and I actually came back, the next year and ran faster, and I never got the dang trophy. But there is an important lesson here for everybody, and maybe you're like me. I'm a night owl. I hate the association between early mornings and running, and I think a lot of people make that association. Running sucks, and they have to get up at 4 a.m. And I'm like, that's not me. I don't do that.
Yeah.
But that trophy is the thing that got me out of bed for those early morning long runs with the group. And that trophy is the thing that kept me focused and helped me like stay like, okay, yeah, I need to do that, like, yeah, I got to go do this. It wasn't my parents cracking the whip. If anything, like I said, they were holding me back. And I think the lesson here for anybody is like, find your trophy. Whatever
Yeah.
that thing
What
is,
motivates
like,
you?
find that thing that motivates you and really stick it out there in front of you and always kind of refer to it. It's important to have that, I think, because it'll help you to be better if you've got that trophy out there, that thing that you're striving for.
Wow.
And frankly, it doesn't really matter what it is as long as it's super important to you, you know?
Hmm.
And to me, it's trivial. Like now, I don't know what I'd do with a stupid 6 foot tall trophy. Like, can you imagine moving that thing around? I hate moving. Like, it's just one more giant thing you'd have to move and it'd probably get broken. Like, but those records will always be mine.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
records are super cool. The trophy doesn't matter anymore, but as a source of motivation, it's huge. Um, Go ahead.
No, that there's a lot to learn from these, and what I find is so interesting is how you were. We've heard stories of like Tiger Woods and other types of people where they're brought up in this whole society that teach them how to have Kenyan type of form running. That's what you had. That no one else really had that benefit because your dad was
Yeah.
the running geek type of a person. In terms of running technique, if people don't have kind of segueing into the second question, people they don't have a dad that can teach them or access to this or that they know of, how and why should someone kind of work on their running technique? What's the purpose? Is it to be more efficient, like you're saying now you're more efficient, you don't log 81 miles a week? Kind of tell me about that.
Yeah. Let me come back to that in just a second if I can,
Yep, please.
because I think it's all of that really. Um, I think there's one more kind of lesson from my history as a kid that I'd like to share, and that's just like um, there's a lot of haters out there. you know, and you really have to understand, that might be internal, it might be external, it might be your own negative thoughts. And I married someone who's very different from me. Like I'm like rays of sunshine, and I kind of dream that I kind of joke that my wife is my dream crusher. Like she's kind of like brings me back to reality.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so, but what happened to me as a kid is everybody was not very nice to my parents and I. And I heard constantly, you're ruining your knees for one. You're running this kind of miles as a kid. You're absolutely destroying your knees. And the other was like, you are you're doing too much LSD. LSD in running terms is long, slow distance. You're doing too much LSD. You're loading all this slowness into your legs. You are not going to be successful at the next level. You're gonna burn out, and you're always gonna be slow because you're doing these long, slow runs. And I'm like doing the math here, and I'm like, well, I'm running like 17-minute 5Ks for the whole marathon, and like most high school kids that are varsity runners are running the same time for one 5K.
Yeah.
We might be okay there. And the other was like you're going to stunt your growth. Like you're just ruining your growth plates. You're going to get destroyed. And I think this is I think there's a lesson here for parents maybe, and also for kids. Like, and I get asked this question a lot. Like, what would you do with your own kids? And
Hmm.
I think I'm still figuring that out. I think the most important thing is it has to be self-driven. I'm so glad my parents weren't there, like pushing me into it, because it would have changed everything in a very negative way. It was they were very supportive of what I wanted to do,
Hmm.
and at the same time they were taking a ton of crap for it. I mean, the amount of people coming up to them saying like, "You're ruining your kid," like you're destroying his knees, you're stunning his growth, you're holding him back for his future. He's never going to get a scholarship in college because you're burning it up now. And the thing is, after years and years of hearing this, it gets to you. You start to hear it all the time. And I did not run cross country as a freshman because I was running a marathon. And the St. George Marathon's right in the middle of cross season. But I did, go to high school and decide to focus on running cross country and track. And, my parents had been like, look, you're going to college. We're not paying for it. So like get good grades or run fast. Okay. And as a kid, you're just like, okay, like, and I was like, I think I'm pretty good at running fast. So let's focus on that one. I happened to get pretty good grades too, but I didn't, take it uber seriously. Um, and, I trained my tail off for my sophomore cross country season, and I ended up 45th at state. I went from world best a couple years before to 45th at state. And, to be honest, anybody who places top 50 in a state championship cross country race has put in a crap load of work. I mean, that's elite level stuff. For me, though, going from world best to 45th at state was a huge letdown.
Oh
And
yeah.
and you know what I'm hearing in my head the whole season? You've stunted your growth. You've got all this LSD, long, slow distance in your legs, and I'm just waiting for my knees to blow up, because this is what I've heard constantly for
Wow.
5 years now. Um, And and again, I think there's a lesson for everybody here too. Is like you're going to face opposition. You're going have negative thoughts. Mine again were coming from an external place that then became internalized. And keep in mind, I'm like 6 inches shorter than all the other kids out there for the most part. Um, and I'm getting burned at the end of races. I just don't have the same leg speed. So in my head, it's like they were right. It's like crap. Like all those haters for all those years, they were right.
Mm, mm.
And, my dad sits me down after the race and he's like, what do you want? And I'm like, I want to win the state championship. But, I mean, maybe they were all right. He's like, look, we just got to put a plan in place. Like, let's do this,
Train
So,
smarter.
yeah, train smarter. And, and I think I was at the time. It was just like, there's a lot of factors coming together, to be honest. I hadn't really matured. Um, and so we had a whole year. And my dad's like, okay, let's lay out everything we need to do for a whole year to win the state championship next year. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. So we chart the whole thing out. And this is like you said, train smarter. There's not a lot of kids doing that. And it's everything from running to diet to exercises to core work. I mean, you name it. Like it was scope, right? And we go do it. And we get to the second to the last race of the year, the region championships, to qualify for state. I still haven't won a race. Um, and and it's like, and I'm like, Dad, and he's like, just stick to the plan. And so, we stick to the plan. And the region championship race, with 3/4 of a mile to go, I hit a downhill, which is my thing, and I put on the jets and I win going away. And nobody's ever heard of me. We're coming in the state championship race, and it's like, okay, this kid won region, but he's never won a race before. Like I wasn't even like really on the radar. And same thing, state championship race. I'd visualized it 250 times. I was going to come around a corner after this pond with a little less than a mile to go, and I was going to burn everybody. And it happened just the way I'd seen it in my head 250 times before. And I win the state championship by like a lot. And and I think the lesson here is like have a plan, because you're gonna have that negativity,
Yeah.
and don't let it just sit up here. When you've got that negativity sitting up here, put a plan in place to beat it. And I think that's really important. So, my takeaways again are like, find your trophy, acknowledge that the negativity will come, and then put a plan in place to beat it. And for me, it worked really well. I also like gained 6 inches between my sophomore and junior years, so I grew. I'm taller than my dad. I got a scholarship to any college I wanted in the world, basically, because the next year I went to the national championship race and I broke the previous national record along with a handful of other guys, actually. But we were the 10 fastest kids to ever run cross country, basically.
Wow.
And so we all had our pick of you can go anywhere, right? And yeah, so I got a scholarship anywhere I wanted. I'm taller than my dad. I've never had any problems with my knees, so the haters can suck it, right? Kind of thing. Um, and not to be unprofessional, but as a kid, that's the way I felt. Is like I had heard all these voices for so long, and to segue back in, like I attribute so much of that to training smarter and to running technique. Because if you see me run, or if you had seen me run, I'm not the prettiest. I certainly don't look like the most talented. You wouldn't pick me out of a crowd and be like, well, that guy's gonna win. Even today, like these days, my wife, we look at pictures of me on the starting line of races, and she's like, you're like the fat kid on the starting line. It's like, and it's kind of true with distance runners. Most of them are pretty, they're very slim, and I'm pretty skinny, but compared to super elites, I'm not, and so I think there's an element of obviously train smarter, but technique I think is a huge part of my success level as well. So
Yeah.
we can transition into that. Sorry, that was a really long
Yeah.
offshoot, but yeah.
No, people that are listening and they want to get better at technique, how can they get help? Is it something they should read? Should they find a person to help them? What's the best way?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime, honestly, like the best coach is seeing yourself. Like, have somebody film you with a camera in slow motion. So on the iPhone, you can just click the slow motion video and have them do it while you're not watching or while you don't know. So it's like have somebody film you at the end of the race or with a hidden camera or just when you're not acknowledging that you're being filmed. So it's really natural, right? Do it on the surface that you run on. So if you train on a treadmill every day, get filmed on a treadmill. You know, if you train on the streets, get filmed on the streets, kind of thing. But it's such a good teacher because we don't look like the way we think we look. It's kind of like when you hear your voice over, you
Hmm.
know, over a recording. You know, when we were growing up, a tape recorder, right? It's like
Yeah.
you
Who's that
hear
funny
this,
guy?
you know, and you're like, who is that? Yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing. Like people see pictures of themselves running, they're like, that's not me. I don't run like that. It's like, look at the face, and they're just like, oh, that is me. I do run like that. Oh my gosh, you know. And I think people people don't realize what they look like when they run. You know, perception is different than reality in this case. And so, to me, that's like the biggest thing is just getting some slow motion video of yourself and see what you actually look like. And then, you know, if you can get help, that's great. There are like next to no people out there teaching distance running technique. It's interesting. Go to any college, any high school in America, and they will teach sprint technique. And you know, the sprinters spend, you know, half their time on technique, right? And you go to distance running, and the coach is like, "Hey, welcome to practice. Here's some housekeeping items. Okay, go run. See you when you get back." You know, it's like, what? If we did this in swimming, people would die. You know, just like, hey, welcome. Just jump in. We'll, you know, swim to the end of the pool and back a few times. Good luck. You know, it's like most of these kids have never run a step in their lives. You know, they're showing up to
Yeah.
cross country for the first time. You know, at least not, you know, in any meaningful way. It's just it's like absurd to me. And so, you know, unfortunately, like next to no one is teaching this, and really next to no one is teaching it well, in my opinion. So, if you can find somebody that does, great. If not, you know, I've got some stuff online, got some stuff on my website, you know, videos and written, and I also do coaching as well. So feel free to just hit me up on my website, goldenharper.net. There's a contact form there, and you know, it can be virtual or in person. So we have all kinds of fun, but it's effective. So you're probably saying, okay, what now? You know, what is it? So I mean, let's do it right here, right now, right? Let's do like a little mini running technique
Okay.
clinic. So, in my opinion, like the worst thing that happens is when coaches tell people exactly what to do. You know, like for example, land with the perfect midfoot strike. Okay. Well, research tells us that people don't land the way they think they land. So that's, you know, this is totally not effective. Or like, hold your arms at exactly 90 degrees. You know what happens when we do this? People get really tense and tight,
Yeah,
right?
because you're trying to.
Oh yeah, like so. And you know, to be fair, anytime we make changes, as you know, it takes 6 weeks for hypertrophy to occur. So you know, full changes of the muscles is it's going to take 6 weeks before any changes like this are going to feel completely natural. You know, but at the same time, the goal is to give cues that get the desired result, right? And so this is the way I try and teach it is, you know, we got to keep it simple. We give cues that get the desired result instead of telling people exactly what to do. And then we kind of roll from there. And we just remember that like between every step is the R word, relax. You know, every time we do something different, we have to remind ourselves to relax. And so the first step is just posture, right? And I call step one proud posture. Specifically, you know, we want to tell people to quote unquote run proud, run tall, and that's your chant you have to yourself while you're running. But basically, what that does is it gets people out of keyboard posture.
Hmm.
And by keyboard posture, I mean like this is the thing that most of us are doing all day, every day, right? It's like the shoulders are slumped, the head is down, the elbows are forward, you're bent at the waist. Obviously, you're sitting, so your hips are back, right? And the reality is, when you're running, you should do none of that. And so I always tell people, like, just remember, if you do it at a keyboard, don't do it running. You know, those things need to be like, you know, and that makes it really easy for people. It's like, okay, yeah, my arms would be forward while at a keyboard. I shouldn't do that while running. Or my shoulders are slumped forward. Shouldn't do that while running. My hips are sitting while I'm at a keyboard. Don't do that while running. Okay, you want to push that chest out, you know, proudly, forward chest, and hips forward as well, not hips back like this. You see most people run, this is where they're at right here. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
But we want them here where the hips are forward, the chest is forward and leading. But we never want to break at the waist. The biggest problem we find with a lot of people is they break at the waist, they bend at the waist. So a lot of running coaches will teach, like, they'll say lean forward. And it's probably technically true, but what I find is when we tell people to lean forward, about 90% of them end up bending at the waist, which
Okay.
completely takes your core out of it, kills everything, and makes it easier to overstride. And so what I find is when we tell people run proud, run proud, they'll push their chest out. Run
Mhm.
tall, they'll bring their hips forward. Okay. Um, when we tell people run proud, run tall, 95% of them will get it. They're going to be right where they are. That's all we need. We just talked about this for a couple of
It's
minutes, but
triggers.
yeah, it's triggers. At the end of the day, run proud, run tall as a chant, internal, does it. I do this other thing for a quick reset that's kind of hard to demonstrate in this situation, but I call it pop the moon. Okay, so you're basically going to pop your arms forward at a 45-degree angle, so just above your head, as fast as you can, and back as fast as you can. And so while you're running along, this is your instant reset while running. So typically what happens, people start out good, and then as the run progresses,
They slump. Hmm.
they slump, the arms come forward, the long distance shuffle starts to happen. And this is when you pop the moon. So again, you're going to throw the arms forward and back as fast as you can. From a seated position, you can see what it does immediately.
Puts everything out.
Yes, you're just back and forth really fast. It's a pop, right? And I call it pop the moon because I pretend that the moon is right out there in front of me. Um, and looks ridiculous, works great. Okay, so it's just one of these things that you're like, okay, I'm willing to look stupid for a second because it's gonna feel awesome, and it
Hmm.
instantly puts your posture back to where it needs to be. So we get our proud posture, we chant to ourselves, run proud, run tall. We make sure we don't bend at the waist, we don't do anything we would do at a keyboard, and then when we need a reset, as we get tired, we pop the moon for that reset, and that's how the posture side of things works. So that's step one. Not that complicated, right? And that's
Hmm.
probably the most complicated one. So um, step two is what I call compact arms. And the reason I call it compact arms is because if you watch most Americans run, it's like we were trained to run by Richard Simmons' 80s music video or exercise videos. It's just like you see a lot of this, like, all kinds of arm motion. And the tragedy is you see it on the cover of Runner's World every freaking month. You see this thing right here, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And there's this like window right here. That's such garbage. I was actually talking to Kara Goucher about this, and I use a picture of her like that as an example. And I was teaching her youth camp, and I was like, "Hey, Kara, I'm going to use this picture of you as an example." And she's like, "Oh, that's cool." I'm like, "Yeah, it's not really a good example." And she's like, "Okay, let me see it." And so I show her. She's like, "Oh, that was posed. I had to do that. I had to do this like 200 times. I would never normally run like that."
Ah.
Um, and so, and this seems to be the case across the board. So the media is actually teaching us to run poorly as well. We see it on the cover of running magazines,
Yeah.
but we see it in Hollywood. We see it on Shape and Fitness and all these other magazines. We see this like classic running pose, which is actually horrific running form. Anytime I see a window between the elbow and the hip, I know that's bad. Okay.
Mm.
But again, back to 80s exercise videos, lots of big arm movement. Okay. And really, you watch the elite runners run, you watch people that never get injured run. And what you see when you watch an elite or never injured runner run at normal human speeds is the wrists are next to the ribs. And the movement is about, at 10-minute pace, which is what most people run, the movement's about 3 inches, 2 to 3 inches is all. They're barely moving anything because they're trying to conserve energy. Because at the end of the day, running long distance is about efficiency. And, I always ask people, put your arm up in the air, move it back and forth as fast as you can. Okay, now bring it down here and move it back and forth as fast as you can. Which one's more efficient, And, it's kind of funny because people usually don't answer with words. They just like they do this. I'm like, all right, you look funny, um, but realistically, like this is way more efficient, and that's
Yeah.
a very simple mechanical lever principle, right? Like the shorter lever is going to be more efficient than the bigger lever.
Love it.
Likewise, the shorter lever is going to be way more efficient than the bigger lever. We're trying to conserve energy, and it also looks a lot prettier. So I kind of think of this in terms of like run British, run proper. You go to like you go to New York City, Central Park, you see all these Americans, like big, bombastic, like stereotypical. And then, like, I went to Hyde Park in London. I'm like, it's like, you know, like, wow, like there is a difference here. So it kind of dawned on me at that moment. It's like, run British, run proper. Like, just like, it wouldn't be proper to be swinging your arms everywhere. You want to keep them nice and tight. So you keep the arms close to the body, wrists to ribs. I call them chicken wings. So because again, you're gonna feel like you're like chicken wings, like you're doing this thing, but you're actually gonna be right here. So these are all ways to get it. But the thing I have to stress to people the most, like, when we do this and we video it, is like over and over, I have to be like, move your arms less, minimize your arm movement, move your arms as little as possible. And they're like, okay, I'm doing it. And then I'm like, okay, now less. Okay, now I'm doing it. I'm like, okay, now less. Like, move your
Yeah.
arms as little as humanly possible. Move them as little as necessary. And the other, important distinction here is like this is not sprinting. There is no forward arm pump in distance running, only back. So it's all about your elbow position. When you want to go faster, all you do is pop that elbow back. Well, what happens to your nice, proud, tall posture when you pop the elbow back? It all falls into
Hmm.
place.
Hmm.
And so this is like to me like this is my thing. And I feel like it's the most overlooked thing in probably all of distance running is that running technique is tied directly to elbow position. If your elbows are back, your posture is likely to be good. It's almost impossible to have your elbow clear back here. And again, you watch any elite runner run, and you are always going to see this window, not this window
Mhm,
here. Okay.
mhm, mhm.
You listen to Meb Keflezighi talk. You listen to others elites talk. They talk about looking at their shadow, or they talk about going by a glass building, or they talk about running by a mirror and looking for this window right here. They're looking for it. And this is the key to making everything else work because, as we know, crosstalk principle of biomechanics, the right foot is tied to the left arm, the left arm is tied to the right foot, and vice versa. Okay. And so, if the elbow is back, the foot is going to land where it's supposed to be. But as soon as that elbow gaps forward, you're likely to overstride at that point in time. So, um, so this is a huge piece of tying everything together. And I think the most important piece of the running technique puzzle that nobody talks about, that I think is just absolutely critical, is minimize the arm movement. Get your chicken wings, keep the wrists next to the ribs, and make sure that window is back here, not up here. And then when you want to accelerate, just simply pop the elbow back. That will nail your posture into place, give you forward momentum, allow you to use gravity to your advantage or momentum to your advantage, if you will. And it's all tied together and it's super cool. And the thing is, you can take somebody, I'd love to, like, I just worked with a kid a few days ago, and his mom was so upset after watching him run in his, at his track meet that the next morning she took him to the track and was like trying to figure out how to make him, not look what she thought was just terrible. She had one kid that runs just, is kind of a naturally beautiful runner, and um, and getting this arm thing for this kid, like he went from looking like he's never really run before to looking like a world-class distance runner. And we worked together for less than you and I have been on this call. It's just
Awesome.
like, pretty quick. It's not that difficult. If we nail the arms, everything else kind of falls into place. So to me, this is the real key of everything
Mhm.
we do as distance runners is compact arms. Um, get your chicken wings, keep your wrists next to your ribs, pop the elbows back when you want to accelerate, and don't let the elbow come forward past the hips because when it does, you're putting a lot more pressure on your knees. hips, low back, and especially shin splints. You know, shins are just taking a beat down anytime you're landing out in front of your knee instead of underneath your knee. So all tied to the arms. So those are steps 1 and 2, which are really the really important ones. Nail your posture, get your nice, proud, tall posture, and then get your compact arms.
Hey guys, thank you for watching Healthy Living. You're going to find a few links here I'd like you to click. One is to subscribe to this channel on YouTube. Also, you can learn more. There are some videos here you can see.